Hello, traders. Yesterday, the industrial data that came out of Japan was just horrible, and it just decimated the chart. So basically, it came down right to the bottom of the channel and stopped yesterday. And this morning, we're catching a nice little bid in the Japanese markets. So that's a positive thing. I had mentioned yesterday. Uh, I thought the lows were in for the Japan's Nikkei, and we might actually have found a significant bottom in these markets, in my opinion. But we have a lot of news coming out this week, including the big thing tomorrow. Draghi's even speaking, and so that's something to be really concerned about. And he doesn't speak until after the market closes tomorrow. So that's why I don't think the market's going to do much until he speaks to the upside. The futures are up this morning, so you just got to be really careful trying to push your longs going into this data. All this data is hitting the tape this week. Then let's see here. Your Shanghai Composite. We are on a sell signal right here in the. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, so it's nearing the close of their markets. So just keep that in mind. We're in the higher volatility zone. This channel that I drew yesterday and showed you guys, and we do have the MACD is showing a negative cross, suggesting that we're going to continue to sell off. We're right here at a significant pivotal resistance zone. We are still holding in this little consolidation box. So we'll see what happens. And this little gap, we're right here at the trying to push down this prior gap. And we'll see what happens on the Chinese markets. Showing a little bit of relative weakness here in China, the mainland China markets. And then we have still have a lot of earnings hitting the tape in China right here, right now. So just keep this in mind on your charting. And if you notice your Hong Kong, it actually hit a low a lot later than what the U.S. markets Christmas Eve, and the Hang Seng actually hit a low a little bit later in the session. Let me see here. So basically, if you put a channel on this one here, we're right here, right now, testing the channel from the early January lows for the Hang Seng, knowing all these earnings are hitting the tape with a negative divergence on our MACD. Excuse me. If you use your fib fans, and this is what I got drawn here in the backdrop, we are on the bearish side of the long-term trend on the DAX. This is the bullish bearish line, and we are breaking this up channel from the first year lows on the DAX, and we're back, and we've actually broken back down below this resistance trend line as of yesterday. And so there's a lot of bad things going on here on the DAX technically, and we got our MACD starting to roll over on it too. And we do have at 5 a.m. German information business climate data. It's very important information. It gives an indication for future activity in the Germany about spending, hiring, and investment. So just keep this in mind. A major economic event is hitting the tape at 5 a.m. So despite the fact that the markets are up right here, right now on the futures, and if you go over here on the U.S. futures, we got a nice little bid in our ES is up almost 9.25 points. Crude's up. Your bonds are down. Quite a bullish scenario. Gold's down. So this is a risk-on scenario in the overnight session. 100 points up on the Dow. So we do have that data, which could arguably already be priced in. We'll see. One thing that I had mentioned a couple weeks ago that I was looking for to mark a potential low in the markets was a capitulation top in the put to call ratio. And as of yesterday, we did get a capitulation, what seems to be a capitulation a top in our put to call ratio for the S&Ps. So just keep that in mind in your trading going forward here. And then see here at 3 o'clock. Yeah, 3 o'clock. You got German consumer spending, and then tomorrow morning, here in a few hours, we got the start having a bunch of housing numbers are going to start hitting the tape. Building permits, housing starts, housing price index. If there's prices are going up in the housing market, and then at 10 o'clock is the consumer confidence numbers. And I'd say that's what's really driving the markets are the consumer confidence numbers, which are probably likely going to tick down a little bit compared to prior confidence readings. Okay, it's important to note that we are right now trading above our prior day's volume point of control. So that is a good sign. Typically, if you come up to that and hit your head and start coming down, that would act as a significant resistance zone. But so far, we are trading slightly above that going into today's data on the ES futures. So that is quite bullish, but we have still broken down below this channel, and being above that right here is a good sign that we could actually get a significant run all the way back up to the 2835 area. That's the next major significant resistance. And if you go out on my daily, you can see what we have broken down from here. This is the primary channel. So 2835 would be back testing at today on our channel. And that's still well within the trading range, which we've been putting in here lately. So just keep that in mind. That is a considerable upside here. So if the markets do decide to catch a bid. So then on our Qs, as of yesterday, you remember me mentioning we came right down to this line, and in yesterday's morning, that did mark the low of the day, and we rallied from there for the rest of the day. So really called the bottom on yesterday's video on the NQs, and it's still holding well within the uptrend channel. So no major breakdown here, but we are in the higher volatility range of the channel. So you have to be extremely cognizant that the moves can be dramatic if the news flow spooks the markets. So it's always something to be aware of. And in our Russell, they really destroyed the volatility yesterday in the markets. And the Russell, basically, we're seeing a recovery scenario here. We're above, since these are both side by side here. That suggests a consolidation or a accumulation zone here in the ready down here. So we actually could start seeing some upside recovery here in our Russell 2000. And if you go on our daily, as you can see, this is the buy zone on our monthly webs. So for the month, this is where you would typically start looking to add to the long side, and the next resistance would be the 1540 area, which we could very easily get that today. So that'd be another 15 points higher on the Russell 2000 if the news flow does support. And we do have considerable value even on the way up. This right here, there's quite a bit of value in this trading zone. So keep that in mind. You know, resolving right through here is a very likely scenario for the week. Now the Dow Jones, I'm a little bit more concerned about. You've only got 30 stocks. You had Nike already disappointing last week, and you got Boeing. Typically, well, I've noticed happening. You had that major cancellation of the airplanes last week for Boeing, and Boeing's a major weighting on the Dow. And typically, the first time around, they don't really sell the stock off real hard. But if there's another big order that gets canceled, which could happen anytime now, that could really devastate the Dow. And of all the patterns that are looking that pretty bearish here, this one here broke this up channel before the other indices. So just keep that in mind. Well, the Russell's been pretty sad, but this one here has shown a lot of relative weakness for only 30 stocks. So just keep this one in. This one here is a critical one to watch. I am thinking actually the Dow is going to be rolling down and retesting this trend line down here. The industrials are really lagging in the market, so keep that in mind going forward here. I do think we do have a capitulation. It's quite possibly a capitulation with the put to call ratio as of yesterday. So that's a reminder on that. Real quick at our VIX, we had a sell-off. The Russell VIX, RVX, it had the biggest sell-off yesterday relative to the other VIX futures. And the front end of the VIX did sell off harder than the back end. For the most part, the back end of the VIX. So keep that in mind. That buildup in the volatility the past few days has bled off a little bit as of yesterday. The two areas that I'm really focusing on right here, and that's your IBB. I think what happened with Biogen last week, canceling one of the major drugs they've been hanging their hat on for years for future earnings. I don't think I think problems are just beginning for the biotechs because Biogen is such a big, heavy weighting for the sector. So I do think we're going to see more relative weakness in our biotechs, and we do have a nice little squeeze going on here on our 4-hour on our IBB, and an even tighter Bollinger squeeze going on our 4-hour, and that is our OIH, and this is an integrated oil and gas index. So just keep this one on watch here, depending on how the markets fare. This here is setting up to either be a driving force for the markets, and technically seasonally, we're going into a seasonally strong period of time for crude oil. So just keep that in mind. You're seeing this squeeze situation. This is likely to be a driving force to the upside if the markets do decide to continue get a bid here. So just keep that, remember that stuff, please. Okay, this view of the market, the three main ones that I try to keep an eye on, and I'll start with my retail sector, XRT. We do have a trend line, a primary trend line that we are backtesting again. So we do have consumer confidence coming out. And keep in mind, the health of the U.S. consumer is very good right now. I mean, in relative speaking, it wasn't like back in 2007, where everybody was maxed out on debt and bad debt to boot. Pretty much, for the most part, the only debt of major consequence right now are the student loans, and they're ridiculous. So until the government steps up and does something about that, it's not retail shouldn't be too bad in that regard. We're still seeing some, we're still right within inside of our channel on our SMH, our semiconductors. So it's holding up pretty good relative. We did have a sell off in our semis yesterday, despite the crush in the VIX. We did have some underperformance in our semiconductors. So, but this has been a major driving force for our markets. Just keep this one on your watch. And then our transports have really been disappointing as of late. And as you can see, it was one of the first to break this uptrend channel, and we are actually closing at marking new lows in the overnight session over these swing lows right here. I do think this is a yearly buy zone, a volume area low for the transports. But we are marking below on our 4 hour. We were pushing down below our 125 SMA, so that is a more bearish take for our transports. And I was seeing a lot of problems with our airlines, and all of those planes being grounded and all the flights having to be canceled and stuff. It's quite a negative scenario for the airline industry. So just keep that, be aware of that situation. We are in a downtrending channel situation with our airlines, and we have not even back tested the bottom of the channel yet. So that's why I'm really leaning more that the transports are going to continue to drag the markets lower, including the Dow Jones Industrials. Okay, and if you look at the Dow Jones transports, I have to go to the other. Wait a minute. And another way to look at your transports here, as you can see, this trend line, we have a inverted head and shoulders, and we're literally on the verge of crashing and breaking lower as of yesterday close. So this is a major warning signal. We can chop around, of course. Yeah, but keep a very, very close eye on your transports. Okay, I want to finish my video with these German yields. And I had pointed out before pretty much anybody posting charts, I saw this breaking. We were marking below these prior swing lows, and look exactly what's going on here with the German bonds. Wow, that is just something. And I do want to point out Wednesday, we do have a 10-year bond auction in Germany. So that could alleviate some of the tension in the and fear in Germany. This massive sell-off and move, if they could actually get some responsive buying back into these bonds, actual physical somebody stepping up to buy the German bonds. So we have negative yields on the German bonds. So very scary situation, and depending on how those bonds sell Wednesday, it's very important. So, and it happens after 5 a.m. I guess for the German bond auction. Okay, and oh yeah, I'm going to finish off with crude here. 1 second. And as you know, a Tuesday night and Wednesday morning we have crude data hitting the tape, and boy, I'm telling you, this crude is really showing some relative strength here. So this could be, like I had mentioned, the OIH having a nice little squeeze going on here. Could be a nice buying opportunity. So just keep that one on your radar. But we're on the bearish side of the 1 hour trend, and we are testing, trying to, suggesting it's wanting to resolve to the upside on our crude oil. And like I said, there's huge production cuts from Russia and Saudi Arabia. and they're trying to support higher prices in the crude oil space. So that's really, I think, another reason to think that the markets are going to see responsive buying going into the rest of the week. So um, that's all I got to say today. I am working, so good luck, and I do plan on putting on some long positions today, and but just something minor. And good trading. Like the video if you like it. Leave comments if you guys hear of any news or anything that are easily missed. If you could post a link, uh, tweet it to me or put it at the bottom of the video so I can review it. I'd appreciate it. Thanks a lot for your time watching my videos. Thanks.